I want to speak about the law of mental diet, and I call it a law because it is as absolute, as unyielding, as inevitable as the law of gravity. Just as your physical body is made up of the food you consume, your consciousness, your entire inner world, your thoughts, your beliefs, your identity, your capacity to manifest is made up of the thoughts you consume. You see, we talk about dieting for the body. We say if you eat junk food, your body becomes junk. If you eat healthy food, your body becomes healthy. This is well understood. Everyone knows it. But almost no one applies the same principle to the mind. We do not think of our thoughts as something we consume. We do not think of our mental environment as a diet. We do not understand that just as surely as eating poison will poison your body, consuming poisonous thoughts will poison your consciousness and your entire life. But I tell you it is so. The law of mental diet is as absolute as any law in the universe. And once you understand this law, once you begin to observe it in your own experience, you will have discovered one of the most powerful tools for transformation that exists. You will have found the key to controlling your destiny, to shaping your circumstances, to creating the life you desire. Let me begin by explaining what I mean by mental diet. Your mental diet is not the thoughts that occasionally pass through your mind. Your mental diet is the habitual thinking that you return to, the thoughts that occupy your consciousness most of the time, the thinking patterns that dominate your awareness. Just as a physical diet is what you regularly consume, not the occasional splurge, but what you eat day in and day out, your mental diet is what you regularly think, what you regularly say to yourself, what you regularly imagine. Most people are completely unconscious of their mental diet. They do not observe what they are thinking. They do not notice the patterns of their thoughts. They do not realize that they're consuming a diet of thoughts that is poisoning their consciousness and limiting their life. If you ask the average person, what did you eat today? They could tell you. But if you asked them, what thoughts did you consume today? What mental diet have you been on? They would not know. They would not have observed it. But I tell you, your mental diet is far more important than your physical diet, because your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts determine your consciousness. Your consciousness determines your circumstances. So if you want to change your circumstances, if you want to change your life, you must change your mental diet. Now let me be very specific about what constitutes a poor mental diet. A poor mental diet consists of thoughts of worry. It consists of thoughts of fear. It consists of thoughts of doubt. It consists of thoughts of unworthiness, thoughts of lack, thoughts of limitation. It consists of memories of past failures and rejections. It consists of imaginations of future disappointments and disasters. It consists of judgments of others, criticisms, condemnations. It consists of complaints and regrets and resentments. If your mental diet consists primarily of these kinds of thoughts, then your consciousness is being poisoned. Your consciousness is becoming identified with lack, with fear, with limitation. And consciousness that is identified with lack, fear, and limitation must create a life that reflects those qualities. I knew a man who was deeply unhappy. He came to me and said, Neville, I do not understand why my life is the way it is. I try. I work hard. I am doing everything I can, but nothing works. My business struggles. My relationships fail. I cannot seem to catch a break. Why is life so difficult? I asked him to do something very simple. I asked him to observe his thoughts. Not to change them yet, just to observe them. I said, for one day, I want you to simply notice what you are thinking. Do not judge yourself. Do not try to change anything. Just observe. The next day, he came back to me and he said, Neville, it was shocking. All day long, I was thinking negative thoughts. I was worried about money. I was imagining ways my business could fail. I was remembering times I had been rejected. I was criticizing myself. I was complaining about my circumstances. And was doubting my abilities. It was constant, and I was not even aware I was doing it. But I said to him, now you see, you are on a mental diet of poison. You are consuming thoughts of lack and fear all day long. And those thoughts are creating a consciousness of lack and fear, and that consciousness is creating a life of lack and fear. If you want your life to change, your mental diet must change. This man understood, and he began to observe his mental diet. And as he observed it, he began to understand the absolute connection between the thoughts he was consuming and the life he was experiencing. He began to see that every time he consumed thoughts of worry, his day was characterized by stress and difficulty. Every time he consumed thoughts of unworthiness, he attracted people who treated him as unworthy. Every time he consumed thoughts of failure, he made decisions that led to failure. But then he did something powerful. He began to change his mental diet. Instead of consuming thoughts of lack, he began to consume thoughts of abundance. Instead of consuming thoughts of fear, he began to consume thoughts of confidence. Instead of consuming thoughts of unworthiness, he began to consume thoughts of being valued and capable. He began to deliberately choose what he would think. He began to become the guardian of his own mental diet. And as he did this, something remarkable happened. His consciousness began to shift. He began to feel different. He began to think differently. He began to make different decisions. And his life began to change. I want to say something very important here. Many people try to change their thoughts through sheer willpower. They say, I will not think negative thoughts. I will force myself to think only positive thoughts. But this does not work for very long, because you cannot suppress a thought through force. The moment you try to force the positive thought onto a consciousness that fundamentally does not believe the positive thought, the consciousness rejects it. And you end up in a struggle with yourself. The real secret is not to force positive thoughts. The real secret is to change what you are consuming. Just as you cannot force yourself to like junk food by eating it, you cannot force yourself to think thoughts that you do not believe by simply repeating them. But if you change your diet, if you stop consuming the poison and start consuming what is nourishing, then your natural preferences change. Your thoughts naturally become different. Think of it this way. If you have been eating junk food your entire life, and then you switch to a healthy diet, at first the healthy food might not taste good to you. Your taste buds have become accustomed to the stimulation of junk food. But if you persist, if you continue to consume the healthy food, your taste gradually changes. Your body begins to crave the healthy food. And one day you realize that you no longer want junk food. The change happened naturally, not through force. The same is true with your mental diet. If you have been consuming a diet of worry, fear, and doubt, then thoughts of confidence and abundance may at first feel false. They may feel like you are lying to yourself. But if you persist, if you continue to consume these new thoughts, your consciousness gradually becomes attuned to them. And one day you realize that you naturally think thoughts of abundance and confidence. The change happened not through force, but through the natural effects of a changed diet. Now, let's think about the specific practice of changing your mental diet. The first step is awareness. You must become aware of what you are currently thinking. Most people have never done this. They have never taken time to observe their own mind. They've never noticed the patterns of their thoughts. I want to give you a practice for the next 3 days. I want you to observe your thoughts without judging yourself. Whenever you notice yourself thinking, simply notice what you are thinking about. Are you thinking about something you are worried about? Are you remembering something that went wrong? Are you imagining something that might go wrong? Are you criticizing someone? Are you complaining about something? Are you doubting your abilities? Do not try to change your thoughts yet. Simply observe them. Write them down if you want. Keep a record of the thoughts you are consuming. After 3 days of observation, you will begin to see patterns. You will see that certain thoughts recur again and again. You will see that your mind habitually returns to certain themes. You might discover that you habitually worry about money, or you habitually doubt your self-worth, or you habitually imagine failures and rejections. You might discover that you habitually complain about your circumstances, or you habitually remember past hurts. Once you see the pattern, once you understand what your current mental diet is, you can begin to change it. This is the second step, the deliberate consumption of a new mental diet. But here is what is important. You do not change your mental diet by force. You change it by finding thoughts that are true to you, thoughts that feel believable, thoughts that you can genuinely identify with. If you try to consume thoughts that feel completely false to you, you will reject them. Your consciousness will not accept them. So the key is to find the thoughts that bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. If you currently believe you are poor, you cannot suddenly start thinking, I am a billionaire, and have it feel believable. But you might be able to think, I am capable of creating abundance, or opportunities for greater income are coming to me, or my financial situation is improving. These thoughts feel more believable because they are a step in the direction of abundance, not a radical departure from your current belief. A woman I knew was struggling with self-worth. She had been told her entire life that she was not good enough. She had internalized this belief. And her mental diet consisted of thoughts of unworthiness. She would say things to herself like, I am not smart enough. I am not pretty enough. I do not deserve good things. I am a burden to others. When I taught her about the law of mental diet, she wanted to immediately start thinking, I am worthy. I am valuable. I deserve the best. But these thoughts felt false to her. Her consciousness rejected them. She felt like she was lying to herself. So I suggested that she start with thoughts that felt more believable. I said, instead of jumping to I am worthy, why not start with I am learning to value myself? Or I have good qualities that are worth developing. Or I deserve to be treated with respect, even if I do not fully believe it yet. She started with these more moderate thoughts. And as she consumed these thoughts regularly, as she made them her mental diet, something began to shift. Her consciousness began to slowly accept them. After a few months of consuming these thoughts, she found that she could genuinely think, I am worthy. And the thought felt true, not false, because she gradually elevated her consciousness through a step-by-step process. This is how you change your mental diet. You start where you are. You find thoughts that are believable to you, and you gradually shift to higher and higher thoughts. And as you do, your consciousness gradually rises, and your life gradually transforms. Now, I want to speak about the mechanism by which the mental diet works. How does what you think actually change your circumstances? There are several ways. First, your thoughts determine your mood and your emotional state. When you consume thoughts of worry, your emotional state becomes one of anxiety. When you consume thoughts of failure, your emotional state becomes one of despair. When you consume thoughts of abundance, your emotional state becomes one of confidence and hope. Now, your emotional state is your vibration. It is the energy that you are sending out into the world, and the world responds to your vibration. People sense your emotional state. They're drawn to confidence and repelled by anxiety. They are drawn to hope and repelled by despair. And so your emotional state, which is created by the thoughts you consume, directly affects how people respond to you. A man who consumes thoughts of unworthiness has an emotional state of insecurity. And people sense this. They do not want to hire him. They do not want to be in a relationship with him. They do not want to trust him. But a man who consumes thoughts of worthiness has an emotional state of confidence. And people sense this. They want to hire him. They want to be in a relationship with him. They want to trust him. So the first way that your mental diet affects your circumstances is through the emotional state it creates and the way people respond to that emotional state. The second way that your mental diet affects your circumstances is through the decisions you make. When you consume thoughts of failure, you make decisions from a place of fear and defensiveness. You might not pursue opportunities because you are afraid of failing. You might not speak up because you are afraid of being rejected. You might not take risks because you are afraid of losing what you have. But when you consume thoughts of abundance and confidence, you make decisions from a place of creativity and expansion. You pursue opportunities eagerly. You speak up more freely. You take calculated risks. And these decisions naturally lead to a different outcome. A woman I knew was offered a promotion at her job. It was a position that would require her to take on more responsibility, to manage people, to make higher level decisions. When she got the offer, she immediately consumed thoughts of doubt and fear. I am not ready for this. I do not have enough experience. I will fail. Everyone will find out that I am not capable. And based on these thoughts, she decided to turn down the promotion. But then she learned about the law of mental diet. She realized that she was poisoning her own opportunities by the thoughts she was consuming. She decided to change her mental diet. She began to consume thoughts like, I am capable of learning. I have been successful in everything I have undertaken. This is an opportunity for growth. I will rise to the challenge. With this new mental diet, she looked at the promotion differently. She thought, yes, it is challenging, but I am the kind of person who rises to challenges. I can learn what I need to learn. I am exactly the right person for this position. And she decided to accept the promotion. That was 5 years ago. She is now thriving in that position. She has been promoted again. She had become a mentor to others. And it all began with changing the thoughts she was consuming. The thoughts determined her decision, and the decision changed her trajectory. The third way that your mental diet affects your circumstances is through what you notice and pay attention to. Your consciousness is selective. You notice what matches your consciousness. You become aware of what aligns with your beliefs. If you consume thoughts of I am poor, your consciousness is attuned to poverty. You will notice when someone is richer than you, you will notice all the ways you lack money. You will notice the advertisements for luxury items you cannot afford. You will notice all the limitations imposed by your lack of money. These are the only things your consciousness registers. But if you consume thoughts of I am prosperous, your consciousness is attuned to prosperity. You will notice opportunities to make money. You will notice how you are already more prosperous than you were. You will notice the abundance in your life. You will notice ways to expand your income. Your consciousness will become aware of entirely different things than the consciousness attuned to poverty. A man came to me and said, Neville, I changed my mental diet. I started consuming thoughts of abundance. But I still am not seeing any opportunities. Where are the opportunities? How will abundance come to me? And I said, the opportunities are everywhere. They have always been everywhere. But your consciousness was not attuned to them before. You did not notice them because you were not looking for them. You were looking for evidence of lack. Now that your consciousness is attuned to abundance, you are noticing opportunities that were always there. I told him to pay attention, to notice every little opportunity that came his way, to observe what he was becoming aware of. And he did. Within a week, he came back to me and said, it is remarkable. Now that I am paying attention, I see opportunities everywhere. I see ways to make extra money. I see connections I could make. I see possibilities I never saw before. It is like a whole new world has opened up. The opportunities were always there. But his consciousness, which was poisoned by thoughts of lack, had not been attuned to them. The moment he changed his mental diet, his consciousness became attuned to them, and he began to notice them. The fourth way that your mental diet affects your circumstances is through the people and situations you attract. This is the most mysterious of the mechanisms, but it is also the most powerful. Like attracts like. You attract into your life people and circumstances that match your consciousness. If you consume thoughts of distrust, you attract people who are untrustworthy. Your consciousness is looking for evidence that people cannot be trusted, and the people you attract provide that evidence. If you consume thoughts of abundance, you attract people who are generous, and people who want to help you prosper. Your consciousness is open to abundance, and the people you attract reflect that openness. The same is true with circumstances. If you consume thoughts of limitation, you attract circumstances that feel limiting. If you consume thoughts of possibility, you attract circumstances that are full of possibility. It is not that you are consciously choosing which people and circumstances to attract. It is that your consciousness, through the thoughts you consume, is literally drawing toward you the people and circumstances that match your consciousness. I knew a man who consumed thoughts of being overlooked. He thought, nobody notices me. I am invisible. Nobody appreciates what I do. I am always left out. And his life reflected this consciousness. He would go to social gatherings, and true to his expectation, people would overlook him. He would do good work at his job, and true to his expectation, nobody would appreciate it. He would be left out of conversation. He would be forgotten when plans were made. But then he realized that his mental diet was responsible. He began to change his thoughts. He began to think, I am visible. People notice me. I am valued and appreciated. I belong. I am interesting and worth talking to. As he consumed these thoughts, his consciousness shifted, and his life began to reflect this new consciousness. People began to notice him. People began to seek out his opinion. He was included in conversations. He was included in social plans. The same people in the same social group began to treat him differently, not because they had changed, but because his consciousness had changed, and he was now attracting and noticing a different class of experiences. Now, this brings up an important point. Some people hear about the law of mental diet, and they say, this is not fair. Are you saying that people who are suffering because they deserve it, because they are not thinking the right thoughts? This seems like victim blaming. And I understand the objection, but I want to be very clear. I am not saying that people deserve their suffering. I am not saying that poor people are poor because they are not thinking wealthy thoughts. What I am saying is this: given the circumstances of your life, the thoughts you consume right now are a primary factor in determining what your life will become from this point forward. You did not choose the beliefs you were given as a child. You did not choose the circumstances of your birth. You did not choose the environment you grew up in. Many things were done to you that you did not choose. So if your consciousness is poisoned right now, it is not because you deserved it, it is because you inherited it. But you can change your inheritance. You can change your mental diet. You can choose different thoughts. By doing so, you can transform your future. The law of mental diet is not about blame. It is about power. It is about understanding that you have the power to change your consciousness, and in doing so, to change your life. A woman I knew grew up in poverty. Her mother was poor. Her grandmother was poor. Her entire family lineage was characterized by poverty. And she inherited a mental diet of poverty. She inherited the beliefs that money was scarce, that wealthy people were dishonest, that hard work was necessary but never enough, that it was normal to struggle. But she realized that she did not want to pass this inheritance on to her children. She realized that if she wanted her children to have a different life, she had to change her mental diet. And so she did. She began to deliberately consume thoughts of abundance. She began to believe that wealth was possible. She began to notice opportunities. She began to make decisions from a place of confidence instead of fear. And her life transformed. She began to earn more money. She began to build savings. She began to invest. She began to create opportunities for herself. And she gave her children a completely different inheritance, a mental diet of possibility and abundance. This is the power of understanding the law of mental diet. It is not about blame. It is about power. It is about understanding that you can change your future by changing your thoughts. Now, I want to speak about the practice of guarding your mental diet. Just as you would not eat junk food all the time and expect to have a healthy body, you cannot consume poisonous thoughts all the time and expect to have a healthy consciousness. You must become deliberate about guarding your mental diet. This means becoming aware of what you are exposing your mind to. It means being selective about what you read, what you watch, what you listen to, what conversations you participate in, because all of these are forms of mental nutrition. If you spend all day reading news about disaster and crime and injustice, you are consuming a diet of poisonous thoughts. Your consciousness becomes attuned to fear and danger. If you spend all day watching television shows about conflict and betrayal, you are consuming a diet of poisonous thoughts. Your consciousness becomes attuned to distrust and defensiveness. But if you read books that inspire you, if you listen to teachings that elevate you, if you spend time in conversations that nourish you, you are consuming a diet of health-giving thoughts. Your consciousness becomes attuned to possibility and growth. A man I knew was deeply unhappy. He would spend hours every day reading news on his phone. Shootings, wars, economic collapse, political division. He was consuming a constant diet of fear and anger. And his consciousness was being poisoned by this diet. He was anxious all the time. He was cynical. He was angry. He could not sleep at night. When I suggested to him that his media diet was poisoning him, he resisted. He said, "But I need to know what is happening in the world. It is important to be informed." I said, "Yes, it is good to be informed, but there is a difference between being informed and being poisoned. Reading the news 3 times a week will keep you informed. Reading the news for hours every day is poisoning you." He decided to change his mental diet. He stopped reading the news obsessively. Instead, he started reading books that inspired him. He started listening to teachings that elevated him. He started spending time in conversations that nourished him. And within a few weeks, he noticed a change. His anxiety decreased. His cynicism began to lift. He could sleep better at night. His entire emotional state shifted. The news did not change. The world was the same. But his consciousness changed because he changed his mental diet. And when your consciousness changes, your experience of the world changes. This is the practice of God in your mental diet. It means being selective. It means recognizing that every piece of input you allow into your consciousness is like food. And you would not put poison in your body knowingly. So you should not knowingly put poison into your mind. Now I want to speak about the relationship between your mental diet and your self-concept. Your self-concept is the image you have of yourself. It is the set of beliefs you hold about who you are. And your self-concept is created and maintained by the thoughts you consume about yourself. If you consume thoughts like, "I am lazy, I am not smart, I am unlucky, I am unlovable," then your self-concept reflects these thoughts. And your self-concept determines how you behave. If you believe you are lazy, you behave like a lazy person. If you believe you are not smart, you behave like someone who is not smart. If you believe you are unlucky, you make decisions that reflect this belief. But if you consume thoughts like, "I am capable, I am intelligent, I am fortunate, I am lovable," then your self-concept reflects these thoughts. And your self-concept determines how you behave. If you believe you are capable, you take on challenges. If you believe you are intelligent, you pursue learning. If you believe you are fortunate, you seize opportunities. The remarkable thing is that your behavior then confirms your self-concept. If you believe you are capable and you take on challenges, you will experience success, which confirms that you are capable. If you believe you are lazy and you do not take on challenges, you will have nothing to point to that contradicts your belief in your laziness. So your self-concept is self-perpetuating. It is maintained by the thoughts you consume, and it is changed by changing the thoughts you consume. I knew a young man who had a self-concept of being a failure. He had tried various businesses and they had all failed. He had applied for various jobs and been rejected. And so he had consumed thoughts like, "I am a failure. Everything I do fails. I am not meant to succeed. The world is against me." When I met him, he was at a critical juncture. He was considering giving up entirely. He was considering accepting the belief that he was a failure and living a small, diminished life. I asked him to do something. I asked him to examine his failures carefully. In each of his failed businesses, I asked him to look at what he had learned. In each of his job rejections, I asked him to look at what had gone wrong. And as he examined them carefully, he realized something. In many of his failures, he had not actually failed. He had simply encountered setbacks and interpreted them as failures. In one business, he had given up when the business was not profitable within the first year, but he had not given it time to grow. In another, he had let one rejection stop him from pursuing the opportunity further. In the job interviews, he had interpreted neutral feedback as rejection. Once he saw this, I suggested that he change his mental diet. Instead of consuming thoughts like, I am a failure, he began to consume thoughts like, I am learning. Every setback is teaching me something. I am resilient. I will try again. He began to consume thoughts like, I am capable of success. It is just a matter of time and persistence. With his new mental diet, he began to behave differently. When he encountered setbacks, instead of interpreting them as failures and giving up, he interpreted them as learning opportunities and tried again. He became more persistent. He made different decisions. And he began to experience success. The remarkable thing was that the external circumstances did not change dramatically. The world did not suddenly become easier, but his internal consciousness changed. And that changed everything. This is the power of the law of mental diet. It is the power to change your self-concept, and in doing so, to change your life. Now, let me speak about something that often happens when people begin to change their mental diet, and that is resistance from others. When you begin to consume a healthier mental diet, when you begin to think differently, when you begin to behave differently as a result of your new thinking, the people around you often resist this change. They are comfortable with the old version of you. They are used to relating to you in a certain way. And when you change, it disrupts their expectations. A woman I knew had spent her entire life consuming thoughts of being the helper, the caretaker, the one who put everyone else's needs before her own. And her entire life was organized around this identity. She was the one people called on. She was the one who sacrificed for others. She was the one who said yes to everything. But then she began to change her mental diet. She began to consume thoughts like, my needs matter. I have the right to put myself first sometimes. I can say no. I can prioritize my own well-being. She began to establish boundaries. She began to say no to requests. She began to prioritize her own needs. And the people around her resisted. Her family said, you are being selfish. You have changed. You are not the person we thought you were. This is not like you. Her friends began to withdraw because they could no longer take her for granted. Even her husband was bothered by the change. But she understood the law of mental diet. She understood that if she wanted to create a different life, she had to consume different thoughts. And she had to be willing to be the only one who understood this at first. She had to be willing to let people be upset with her changes, because ultimately they would either adjust to the new version of her, or they would fade from her life. And in both cases, she would be better off. And indeed, over time, this is what happened. The people who mattered adjusted. Her family began to respect her boundaries. Her friends who were truly her friends adapted. And new friendships formed with people who respected her for taking care of herself. This is an important point. When you change your mental diet, you are changing. And that change will be resisted by some people. You must not allow that resistance to pull you back into your old mental diet. You must persist in your new thinking. And you will find that your world reorganizes itself around your new consciousness. I want to pause here and give you a practical exercise. I want you to begin to be aware of your current mental diet. For the next week, I want you to keep track of the primary thoughts you return to. What do you think about repeatedly? What themes dominate your thinking? Do you think about worry, about unworthiness, about lack, about injustice, about past hurts, about future fears, write these down. Do not judge yourself. Simply observe. Then at the end of the week, look at your list. This is your current mental diet. This is what you are feeding your consciousness. And then ask yourself, is this the diet that will create the life I desire? Will these thoughts create abundance? Will they create love? Will they create health? Will they create success? If the answer is no, then you know what you need to do. You need to change your mental diet. You cannot try to change everything at once. Pick one thought pattern. Pick one area of your life you want to shift. And begin to deliberately consume different thoughts in that area. If you want to shift from poverty consciousness to abundance consciousness, start consuming thoughts of abundance. When you notice yourself thinking about lack, pause and deliberately think a different thought. Think about something you are grateful for. Think about an opportunity. Think about your ability to create. Consume the thought of abundance deliberately. If you want to shift from unworthiness to worthiness, start consuming thoughts of worthiness. When you notice yourself thinking about your inadequacy, pause and deliberately think about your good qualities. Think about something you have accomplished. Think about your value. Consume the thought of worthiness deliberately. Do this consistently. Return to the new thought again and again. Make it your mental diet. And gradually your consciousness will shift. And as your consciousness shifts, your life will shift. This is the law of mental diet. It is the law that governs the creation of your reality. It is the law that explains why some people are happy and others are miserable, why some people thrive and others struggle, why some people create the lives they desire and others remain trapped in patterns they do not want. And the beautiful thing about this law is it is completely in your control. You cannot control the world. You cannot control other people. But you can control the thoughts you consume. You can control your mental diet. And by controlling your mental diet, you control your destiny. We will now explore the specific mental diets that create specific realities. We will explore how to practice consuming a new mental diet even when circumstances seem to contradict it. We will explore how to help others understand this law without forcing it on them. And we will explore the ultimate goal of the law of mental diet, the complete transformation of your consciousness and your life. Let me begin by speaking about the different mental diets that create different reality. Just as there are different physical diets, the diet of an athlete, the diet of someone trying to lose weight, the diet of someone managing a health condition, there are different mental diets that guard to be diets of the mental consumption. What a uterine sanctioning for health. Do you not think the diet's popular? The diet of an athlete, the diet of someone trying to lose weight, the diet of someone managing a health condition. There are different mental diets that create different results. The mental diet of scarcity creates a life of struggle. This diet consists of thoughts like there's not enough, I have to compete. If someone else wins, I lose. Money is hard to come by. I have to sacrifice to get what I want. Good things come to those who suffer. Nothing good comes easy. A person on this mental diet will experience constant struggle. They will experience a life where they have to fight for everything. They will experience competition and scarcity around them. Opportunities will be few and far between. The mental diet of abundance creates a life of flow. This diet consists of thoughts like there's enough for everyone. Opportunities are everywhere. Money comes to me easily. Good things happen for me. I deserve prosperity. Life supports me. I can have what I want without taking from others. A person on this mental diet will experience flow in their life. They will encounter opportunities. They will find that people want to help them. They will experience a sense of being supported by life itself. The mental diet of unworthiness creates a life of invisibility and rejection. This diet consists of thoughts like, I am not good enough. People do not want me around. I do not deserve good things. I have to earn love. If people knew the real me, they would reject me. I am a burden. Everyone is better than me. A person on this mental diet will find that people overlook them. They will find that they are not chosen. They will find that love feels conditional and fragile. They will experience repeated rejection. The mental diet of worthiness creates a life of belonging and acceptance. This diet consists of thoughts like, I am valuable. People appreciate me. I deserve good things. I belong. People want to be around me. I have something valuable to offer. I am worthy of love and respect. A person on this mental diet will find that people seek them out. They will find that they are chosen. They will find that love feels natural and secure. They will experience repeated acceptance. The mental diet of fear creates a life of danger and threat. This diet consists of thoughts like, the world is dangerous. Something bad is going to happen. I cannot trust people. Life is unpredictable. I have to be on guard. Bad things happen to people like me. It is not safe to be myself. A person on this mental diet will find that they encounter danger and threat. They will find that people betray them or let them down. They will find that life feels unpredictable and threatening. The mental diet of trust creates a life of safety and support. This diet consists of thoughts like, the world is supportive of what's happened. I can trust people. Life is guiding me. I am safe. Good things happen to people like me. It is safe to be myself. A person on this mental diet will find that they encounter support and kindness. They will find that people are trustworthy. They will find that life feels stable and supportive. Now, here's what is crucial to understand. These are not just attitudes or philosophies. These are actual diets of thought that create actual patterns of experience. The person on the mental diet of scarcity is not just thinking scarcity. They are literally constructing a life of scarcity through the thoughts they consume. The person on the mental diet of abundance is literally constructing a life of abundance through the thoughts they consume. And this happens not through magic, but through the actual mechanisms we discussed in the first half of this lecture. The mental diet creates an emotional state which attracts certain people and circumstances. The mental diet creates a set of decisions which lead to certain outcomes. Mental diet creates a selective awareness, which means you notice certain things and not others. The mental diet creates a self-concept which determines how you behave. So when you change your mental diet, you are not just changing your thoughts. You are changing the actual trajectory of your life. You are stepping off one path and onto another path, and that other path will take you to a completely different destination. I knew a couple who wanted to have a beautiful, fulfilling marriage, but they were on different mental diets. The names of the mental diet consisted of thoughts like, women are manipulative, my needs do not matter, I cannot trust her, she is going to hurt me. His emotional state was defensive and wary. His decisions were made from fear and self-protection. He did not share his feelings or his vulnerability. He kept distance. He did not invest in the relationship. The wife's mental diet consisted of thoughts like, men are selfish. I have to do everything. He does not care about me. I am alone in this. Her emotional state was resentful and exhausted. The decisions were made from anger and control. She tried to manage everything. She criticized his efforts. She withdrew affection, and their marriage was suffering because they were both on mental diets that created the exact outcomes they feared. The husband's fear was creating the distance that confirmed his belief that he could not trust her. The wife's resentment was creating the coldness that confirmed her belief that he did not care. But then they came to understand the law of mental diet. They realized that they had a choice. They could continue on their current mental diets, or they could shift to a different diet. The husband began to consume thoughts like, I can trust her. My feelings matter. She cares about me. It is safe to be vulnerable. The wife began to consume thoughts like, he is doing his best. We are a team. He cares about me. I can relax and trust. As they consumed these new thoughts, their emotional state shifted. Their decisions shifted. The husband began to share more openly. The wife began to receive his offerings with appreciation instead of criticism. They began to have conversations instead of arguments, and their marriage transformed. It did not happen overnight. They had to persist in their new mental diets even when old patterns tried to reassert themselves. But over time, the marriage became beautiful, not because they tried harder or went to therapy or read books about marriage, but because they changed the mental diet that was creating their relationship reality. This is how profound the law of mental diet is. It governs everything in your life, your relationship, your work, your health, your finances, your happiness, your sense of possibility. Now let me speak about what happens when the external world contradicts your new mental diet. This is where many people fail. They change their mental diet, and then they encounter evidence that contradicts the new diet. And they abandon the diet, thinking it is not working. For example, a woman changes her mental diet from I am unlovable to I am lovable. She feels wonderful. She feels the truth of this new thought. But then a man rejects her romantically, and she thinks, see, I am not lovable. This new mental diet is not working. And she returns to her old diet of unworthiness. But I tell you, this is a misunderstanding. The contradictory evidence is not proof that the new diet is not working. The contradictory evidence is the echo of the old diet. It is the manifestation of the old consciousness that was dominant until very recently. Think about it this way. If you have been on a diet of junk food your entire life, and then you switch to a healthy diet, your body does not immediately become healthy. It takes time for the toxins to leave your system. It takes time for your body to heal. And during this transition period, you might feel worse before you feel better. You might experience withdrawal symptoms. You might feel tired or headachy. And someone might say, this healthy diet is not working. You feel worse than before. Go back to junk food. But if you abandon the healthy diet based on this temporary discomfort, you would never experience the real benefits of the healthy diet. You would never give your body a chance to heal. The same is true with your mental diet. When you switch from an old mental diet to a new mental diet, you do not immediately experience only evidence of the new diet. The old manifestations continue for a while. The old patterns persist for a while. The old evidence continues to appear for a while. This is the transition period, and this is where you must have faith. You must continue to consume the new mental diet, even though the external world has not yet caught up to your new consciousness. I knew a man who wanted to shift his mental diet from I am broke to I am prosperous. He began to consume thoughts of prosperity. He felt them, he believed them, but he still had an empty bank account. He still had bills that needed to be paid. He still had limited income. One day something happened that tested his faith. He needed a new transmission for his car. It was going to cost $3,000, and his initial thought was to panic. He had just started changing his mental diet. And here was external evidence that he was not prosperous at all. But he remembered the law of mental diet. He remembered that this was exactly the kind of evidence that would make him abandon his new diet. And he made a choice. He said, the need for this transmission does not change the truth. I am prosperous. This is the test of my faith. I will not abandon my new diet because of this evidence. And then he did something interesting. Instead of sinking into worry about paying for the transmission, he began to feel prosperous about it. He thought prosperous people had cars fixed. Prosperous people solve problems easily. I am prosperous and I will solve this problem. He did not know how it would be solved, but he maintained his mental diet. Within a week, a friend offered him an unexpected job that would pay him $3,500. The friend did not plan to offer the job, but something moved him to offer it. And the man accepted it, not from desperation, but from confidence. And the transmission was fixed. Now, you might say this was coincidence, but I tell you it was the result of maintaining his mental diet even when the evidence contradicted it. His consciousness was creating a life of prosperity, and the solutions appeared to match that consciousness. This is crucial. You must maintain your new mental diet even when, especially when the external world offers you evidence that contradicts it. You must trust that the external world will eventually catch up to your consciousness, but it takes time. It takes persistence, and it takes faith. There is a period of time between when you change your mental diet and when the external world manifests the results of that new diet. During this period, you will feel as though nothing is changing. You will feel as though your new diet is not working. This is the most dangerous time, because this is when you are most tempted to abandon the new diet and return to the old one. I call this the desert period. You have left the old land of your limited consciousness, but you have not yet reached the new land of your expanded consciousness. And the desert is vast and empty and dry, and it is so tempting to turn back and return to the familiar land you came from. But I tell you, if you press forward, if you continue to consume your new mental diet, if you maintain faith in the new consciousness you are creating, you will eventually cross the desert. When you do, you'll find yourself in a completely new land, a land where your circumstances match your consciousness, a land where your reality reflects your diet. A woman I knew wanted to transition from working a job she hated to building a business she loved. She began to consume a mental diet of being an entrepreneur. She imagined her business thriving. She felt the pride of building something of her own. She spoke about herself as an entrepreneur, but she was still at her job. She had not left yet. She did not have any clients yet. She did not have any revenue yet. And the desert period was long. For 6 months, nothing visible changed. She was still at her job, consuming time and energy. She had started her business, but it had generated no income. Her friend said, "You should focus on your job. This business thing is a distraction. It is not going to work." But she understood the law of mental diet. She continued to consume the thoughts of being an entrepreneur, even though the evidence did not yet support it. She maintained her mental diet even in the desert period. Then, around month 7, something shifted. A contact she had made introduced her to a client. The client became interested in her services, and she completed her first transaction. And the client referred her to another client, and within 2 months she had enough business that she could leave her job. Once she left her job and became full-time with her business, things accelerated. But it all began with maintaining her mental diet during the desert period. It all began with believing in a new consciousness before the evidence supported it. This is the practice of the law of mental diet. It is not just thinking positive thoughts. It is not just visualization. It is maintaining a new consciousness through the desert period until the external world catches up to your inner reality. Now let me speak about the practice of actually consuming the new thoughts. Because knowing the law is one thing, practicing the law is another thing. And the practice requires discipline and awareness. Here is what I recommend. First, you identify the mental diet you want to change. You identify the specific thoughts you want to shift. Do you want to shift from poverty consciousness to abundance consciousness? From unworthiness to worthiness? From fear to trust? From isolation to belonging? Second, you identify what new thoughts you want to consume instead. You do not have to jump to the highest thought. You just have to identify thoughts that are one step higher than your current consciousness, thoughts that feel believable to you, thoughts that feel like a reasonable progression. For example, if your current thoughts are, I am broke and I will always be broke, you might shift to, my financial situation is improving, or I have opportunities to increase my income, rather than immediately jumping to, I am wealthy and abundant. Third, you deliberately return to these new thoughts. This is the key practice. You do not try to change your thoughts through willpower. You do not fight your old thoughts. You simply return to the new thoughts. Again and again, you return to them. Let me give you a specific practice. In the morning when you wake up, before you engage with the world, spend 5 minutes consuming your new mental diet. Close your eyes, think about your new thoughts, feel them, let them saturate your consciousness. If your new diet is abundance, think about how abundance feels. Think about a time you felt abundant, feel the ease of it, feel the trust, feel the gratitude. Spend 5 minutes in this consciousness. Then throughout the day, whenever you notice yourself slipping into the old mental diet, you pause, you take a breath, and you consciously return to the new thoughts. You do not resist the old thought. You do not fight it. You simply redirect. You redirect your consciousness to the new thought. For example, if you notice yourself thinking, I cannot afford this, you pause and think instead, this is an opportunity to be creative about how to get what I need. You do not pretend you have the money if you do not. You do not deny reality. You just shift to a thought that is more aligned with the consciousness you want to create. In the evening before you sleep, spend another 5 minutes consuming your new mental diet. Let the last thought you have before sleep be a thought from your new diet, because your consciousness carries the last thought you have into your sleep. And sleep is a powerful time for consciousness to reorganize itself. This is the practice, morning consciousness, throughout the day redirection, evening consciousness. And the more you practice this, the more the new mental diet becomes your habitual diet, the more it becomes automatic, until one day you realize that you are naturally thinking the new thoughts. You are naturally in the new consciousness. The old mental diet no longer has a hold on you. Now there is something else I want to speak about, and that is the relationship between your mental diet and your spoken words, because your words are an expression of your mental diet, and your words are also a form of mental diet. When you speak words, you are consuming them, and they reinforce the consciousness they express. So if you are trying to change your mental diet, you must also change your spoken words. You cannot think thoughts of abundance and speak words of poverty. You cannot think thoughts of worthiness and speak words of unworthiness, because the spoken word will keep putting your consciousness back to the old diet. This is why the practice of inner speech and inner conversation is so important, because your inner speech is the bridge between your thoughts and your external words. And if you can align your inner speech with your new mental diet, your external words will naturally align as well. A man I knew was trying to shift from a consciousness of being overlooked to a consciousness of being valued. But whenever people did not respond to him immediately, he would say things like, nobody cares about me. I do not matter. I might as well not even speak. These words were reinforcing his old consciousness of being overlooked. I told him that he needed to change his inner speech. When he felt overlooked, instead of thinking and saying, nobody cares, he needed to think and say, I am in the process of being more visible. People are becoming more aware of me. My value is being recognized. This is not denying the present moment. In the present moment, maybe someone did overlook him, but he was not accepting that as permanent. He was not accepting it as the truth of who he is. He was treating it as a temporary condition that is changing. And as he changed his inner speech, his consciousness gradually shifted. And as his consciousness shifted, people began to treat him differently. Not because he was forcing them to, but because his consciousness was no longer broadcasting the energy of being overlooked. His consciousness was broadcasting the energy of being valuable. And people responded to that energy. This is the power of inner speech. This is why so much of Neville's teaching emphasizes the importance of your inner conversation. because your inner conversation is literally the diet your consciousness is consuming moment by moment. Now let me speak about something that often comes up, and that is the question of what to do when you fall back into the old mental diet. Because you will. You will change your mental diet, you will make progress, and then something will happen that triggers your old consciousness. Now you will find yourself back in the old mental diet. This is not failure. This is normal. This is part of the process. The old mental diet has been dominant in your consciousness for years, perhaps your entire life. You cannot erase it overnight. What you are doing is gradually shifting the dominance. Gradually, the new mental diet is becoming more dominant. But the old mental diet is not disappearing. It is just becoming less dominant. So when you notice that you have slipped back into the old mental diet, do not judge yourself. Do not say, I have failed. This is not working. I should give up. Instead, simply acknowledge that the old diet has reasserted itself. And then with gentleness and without resistance, return to the new diet. It is like driving a car that has been pulling to the left because the wheel alignment is off. You are learning to steer it to the right. At first, you have to actively correct the steering. It takes attention and effort. But the more you practice correcting it, the more automatic it becomes. And eventually, you develop the habit of steering it right without even thinking about it. The same is true with your mental diet. At first, you have to actively return to the new diet. It takes attention and effort. But the more you practice, the more automatic it becomes. And eventually, the new diet becomes your natural habit. A woman I knew was working on shifting from a consciousness of struggle to a consciousness of ease. One day, something stressful happened at her job, and immediately her consciousness reverted to the old diet. She found herself thinking, this is so hard, I cannot handle this. Life is a constant struggle. She caught herself, and she realized that she had slipped back into the old diet. She did not judge herself. She did not say, I failed. The new diet is not working. Instead, she simply said, interesting. The old diet is strong in this moment. Let me return to the new diet. And she took a breath, and she shifted her thinking. She thought, this is challenging, but I am capable of handling it. I have handled difficult things before. I can find the ease in the situation. I can handle this with grace. And by redirecting her consciousness in that moment, she prevented the old diet from completely taking over. And within a few hours, the stress had passed. And she realized that she had successfully navigated a challenging moment while maintaining a diet that was much closer to ease than to struggle. This is the practice, returning again and again, not perfection, but returning to the new diet, building the habit, making it more and more automatic. Until one day the new diet is your dominant consciousness, and you barely remember what the old diet felt like. Now, I want to speak about the ultimate transformation that is possible when you truly master the law of mental diet. Because mastering your mental diet is not just about getting what you want. It is not just about manifesting wealth or love or success. It is about something far deeper. It is about awakening to who you truly are. You see, the law of mental diet ultimately shows you that you are not your circumstances. You are not your past. You are not your limitations. You are consciousness. You are the one who is consuming the diet. You are the one who is choosing what thoughts to feed yourself. You are the cause, not the effect. Most people live as though they are effects. They say, this happened to me, so I feel this way. This person did this to me, so I became this way. These are my circumstances, so this is my life. They see themselves as victims of external forces. But the law of mental diet shows you that you are not a victim. You are a creator. You are the one whose consciousness is creating your reality, not in the future, but now. In every moment, through the diet of thoughts you are consuming. And when you truly grasp this, when you truly understand that you are the cause and not the effect, you experience a profound shift. You experience yourself as powerful. You experience yourself as free. You experience yourself as responsible for your life. And this is the ultimate transformation, not just changing your circumstance, but changing how you see yourself in relationship to your circumstances. Moving from victim to creator, moving from effect to cause, moving from powerlessness to power. I knew a woman who had lived her entire life as a victim. Things had been done to her, people had hurt her, life had been unfair to her, and she spent decades angry and resentful and unhappy. But then she learned about the law of mental diet, and something shifted. She began to realize that even though bad things had happened to her, the diet of thoughts she had been consuming about those things was her choice. She had been consuming thoughts of victimhood. She had been consuming thoughts of being damaged. She had been consuming thoughts of being unable to move forward. And she realized that she could change that diet, not by knowing what happened, not by pretending it was okay, but by shifting from I am a victim of what happened to I am a creator, choosing how to move forward from what happened. It was a subtle shift, but it was profound, because suddenly she was not waiting for the world to heal her wounds or apologize for hurting her or make up for the injustices. She was taking responsibility for her own consciousness. She was choosing what diet to consume about her past. And as she did this, she began to heal. Not because the past changed, but because her consciousness about the past changed. And as her consciousness changed, the present began to change. Her future opened up. This is the ultimate transformation of the law of mental diet. It is the reclamation of your power. It is the awakening to the truth that you are the creator of your reality through the consciousness you assume and the diet you consume. Now, in closing, I want to leave you with this understanding. The law of mental diet is not complicated. It is simple. You consume thoughts. The thoughts create consciousness. The consciousness creates reality. If you want to change your reality, change your mental diet, but do not misunderstand what I am saying. I am not saying that you can just think good thoughts and ignore practical reality. I am not saying that you can visualize wealth and not take any action toward creating it. I am saying that the quality of your consciousness determines the quality of your actions and decisions, which determines the results you create. A man who has changed his mental diet from poverty to abundance will make different decisions about money. He will notice opportunities he did not see before. He will take actions that are different from the actions of a man still on a poverty diet. And those different decisions and actions will create different results. So the law of mental diet is not separate from practical action. It is the foundation of practical action. It determines the quality of your actions. It determines whether you are acting from fear or confidence, from scarcity or abundance, from unworthiness or worthiness. So my final instruction to you is this: become aware of your mental diet. Notice what you are habitually thinking. Notice what consciousness is dominant in you. And then, if you do not like the reality that diet is creating, change it deliberately, persistently, with faith. Change your mental diet. Feed your consciousness with thoughts that will create the reality you desire. Return to these thoughts again and again. Maintain them even in the desert period when evidence contradicts them, and watch as your reality gradually transforms to match the consciousness you are creating through your new diet. This is the law of mental diet. This is how you become the conscious creator of your reality. This is how you awaken to your true power. And this power is available to you right now, not tomorrow, not when circumstances change, not when you are ready. Now, in this very moment, you can make a different choice about what you will think. You can begin a new mental diet. You can begin the transformation of your consciousness and your life. Will you do it? Will you become aware of your diet? Will you choose a new diet? Will you persist in consuming the thoughts that will create the reality you desire? The choice is yours. And the moment you make it, the moment you truly commit to changing your mental diet, your entire life will begin to shift. Good night.